الديمقراطيه الثالثه صحيح، لان المواطنين كانوا من خلال اطلاعهم على ادوات الاعلام يعرفون ان هناك اذن ديمقراطيه في اللغه الجغرافيه العالميه. ما هي اذا؟ يعني بعد هذا التحدي ما هي التحديات التي تواجهها هذه النظم؟ اول تحدي هو يعني البعض يدركه جيدا، نحن بحاجه الى الوجود المادي للدوله. كنا نعتقد الدوله السلطويه لانها قاصره فقط على الوجود المادي، انها يعني بتنجح في ان توجد اجهزه الشرطه والجيش والمحاكم في كل انحاء الوطن. نحن في الوقت الحاضر نريد ان تستعيد الدوله وجود يعني هذه المؤسسات. فالواجب الاول، واعتقد الاخوه في اليمن وفي ليبيا وفي تونس وفي مصر يشعرون بذلك، انه لابد من استعاده الامن. استعاده الامن يعني اعاده وجود الدوله، ولكن يعني حل مشكله وجود الدوله لا يقتصر فقط على وجودها المادي، ولكن ان تتمتع بالقدره على دفع التنميه الاقتصاديه. ايضا حل مساله التكامل الوطني التي تفجرت بعد هذه الثوره. يعني مشكله الهويه لم تكن ظاهره في معظم هذه الدول، ولكن عرفنا من بعد نجاح الثوره في ليبيا يعني اخوه في بنغازي اصبحوا يطالبون بان تكون ليبيا نظام اتحادي يتمتع بقدر من الاستقلال الذاتي. هناك مشاكل متفجره بالنسبه للاخبار في مصر، هناك مشكله الانفصال في الجنوب في اليمن، وبالتالي مساله التكامل الوطني ناشونال انتجريشن حل مشكله الهويه هي تحدي ثاني. مساله التحدي الثالث هو حل مشكله التوزيع في وقت اتسع فيه المشاركه السياسيه. يعني هنا المواطنون تزداد رغبتهم في المشاركه من خلال الانتخابات ومن خلال الاحزاب، ولكن هم لا يريدون المشاركه في حد ذاتها، لم يريدون هذه المشاركه حتى تستخدم هذه المشاركه كوسيله لرفع مستويات الدخل، لتوفير الخدمات، لحل مشكله التفاوت الكبير بين قطاعات الوطن، وان يستهدفوا التراكم الراسمالي، يستهدفوا تعبئه الموارد لتحقيق التنميه الاقتصاديه بمعدلات اسرع مما كان عليه الحال قبل. اعتقد انه هذا ما اردت ان اقوله لكم في هذا العرض المطول الذي اعتذر عن اطالته، ولكن تصورت ان هذا يعني يمكن ان يوفر لنا السياق المناسب حتى نناقش مسائل مثل الشفافيه والمساءله والمشاركه في الدول الأوروبية.
Let me just right away introduce some of our next speakers. So, His Excellency the former Prime Minister from Poland.
Because they also advised to our transition and to transition in other countries in Central Eastern Europe. So it's something incredible for me that now I could speak 20 years later about how did it happen in my country and what was most dangerous, what was easier, what was more difficult. And let me say, for me very important is our discussion after the lectures, because it's always the same. I'm quite sure I can also tell on behalf of others, speakers, that we are not for preaching you or even teaching, just to exchange views, exchange experiences. And I can tell you that it was not easy in my country to change everything completely, almost completely. But now we are rather successful, and I don't think this is any number of people and citizens who would like to come to the old system. Even people who represented the old regime, they could find themselves inside a new situation, thanks to very difficult and very dangerous, from some point of view, process of reconciliation between all the people in my nation, my country. Of course, there were a lot of penalties for responsible, but we divided people onto active participants of the old regime and passive participants. And we should also think about our future from that perspective, that we are ready to leave the same country after such a bad experience as you had in your countries and we had in our countries in Central Eastern Europe. It was not easy, of course. And let me say, I would like to say, well, I hope the short points. And because I prepared 5 points, so we know very well that for each point it should be not more than 2 or 3 minutes, and that will be all. So, I will tell you at the beginning. Few words about the values. You know very well what it means, values, because you fought, you have been fighting for decades for the values, at least quite visible for the last 2 years during the Arab Spring and Arab Revolution. Second point will be about good governance. What does it mean for me? Third point will be institutions, how we build them in our countries. And civil society, point number 4, very, very broad, of course. And point number 5 is about difficulties, threats, not only about challenges, because we've got challenges in front of us, which are not easy to fulfill, but difficulties, obstacles in building new system. So let us go point after point. Well, it will be only small remarks on each point. So I'm open for the discussion if you want to ask any question. Values. Why? I'm ready to come back to such a fundamental question. Because it was not for us, and at least for a million ordinary citizens, to define the values which are important for our common future. So we developed the very simple slogan: no freedom, no bread without freedom. No bread without freedom. And also, no bread without equality. It was very clear for each citizen in our country. Bread, as a matter of fact, it means prosperity, because we don't think about the bread only, but it's something like abbreviation. Bread, prosperity, freedom and equality, more or less democracy. Of course, it was quite easy to develop the values. First of all, to truth. It's also a main point in our discussion. Transparency, because truth, saying truth, present truth, write truth, means the same as transparency. It's one of the topics in our meeting, in our conference. And another fourth very important value, but very visible, very easy to understand, was solidarity. Well, we, as a matter of fact, organized trade union independent in the middle of communist system, communist regime, totalitarian regime. We organized trade union, solidarity, saying about our values and saying about our cooperation, solidarity between young generation and old generation, between people working in the cities and the countryside, between coal miners and physicians, between teachers and banking clerks. Because in each point of our country, the situation was different, but all of us, we wanted, as a matter of fact, same, from different perspectives. But the fixed values, which arose very, very quickly, meant responsibility. We cannot achieve anything not feeling responsibility, solidarity, but also responsibility for others, for the whole country. So, there were the 5 values we were fighting for. And that was a problem of how to govern country, because as a matter of fact, communist regime could not fight against trade union, which said no violence from our side, we don't have any arms, no tanks, we would like to improve situation in our country, we are open to you, we would like to cooperate with you, even with you, old regime, if you are not responsible for criminal things, of course. And it was question of good governance. Point number 2. And we discovered very quickly, good governance in democracy means for us certain mix of values, institutions and procedures. So values and institutions and procedures. It means we ask how to make the values really working in practice. And the question asked is, we must build institutions, democratic institutions, and procedures. As a matter of fact, that's all, but very difficult, extremely difficult. And in point number 3, I wanted to give you examples how we started. Well, it took us some time. It's not very quick, but constitution. And the most important points were about the 5 values. They were defined. Transparency, truth. Well, we can say that truth is our transparency today. If we say solidarity is participation, it's the same, it's topic of our discussion for today. And responsibility means accountability, is almost the same. Responsibility, accountability. Accountability of government, accountability of governing parties, but also accountability of each citizen. So, how to organize ourselves? How to organize institutions? Constitution. I'm in point number 3. Institutions. First of all, constitution. To define freedom. And everything together with freedom. Of course, freedom of religion, freedom of media, freedom of any NGO, freedom of any other freedom. I would like to mention that. To define responsibility of each new built institution, it should be in the Constitution. Responsibility of each institution, but also responsibility of all the citizens. And very important, independence of judiciary. I would like, because I say about 3 things. How to say about the freedom in the Constitution. How to say about responsibility, different institutions, citizens, and so on and so on. And third point in the Constitution, very important, independent judiciary. Why? Because if we want to regain trust, confidence between citizens, between institutions and citizens, between different institutions, in the business community, we need independence from judiciary. Everybody should have possibility to complain if by his or her opinion something is not going very well. And who should judge it? Of course, independent judiciary. We need also, of course, prosecution and prosecution. For example, for fighting corruption. We need also rebuild our police, because police should defend people. Police should also to help to fight corruption, mafia, anything like that. So with judiciary, I also mean prosecutors and also police, because it's very closely connected. Let me say, we organize very quickly free media, we organize also and wrote all the law for NGOs. You know very well how important it is. Independent from government, from each other organizations, being active between the citizens, and decentralization of the country, which was very important. We built self-government on 3 levels, except of national level and government, national government. We had self-government on the level of regions, on the level of districts, and level of municipalities. Municipalities, it means cities and villages, municipalities. 2,500, 316 regions, and 1 government. And all the levels independent from each other. That was not dependence, one level on the other level. Independence, but of course, they had to take care of the law. And they should take care about their responsibility on certain field. It was possible to organize. It was not easy. At the beginning, we thought it would be impossible. Yes, it was possible, and now it's working very, very well. Also in our cooperation inside the European Union, improving growth, creating jobs, so important. Creating, let's say, creating a situation for our economy that is growing all the time, even now in the crisis. We could create competitive economy, even in time of crisis, for 1 or 2 years. As a matter of fact, many members of the European Union were about 0 growth or even -2, -3, so on. In my country, all the time, we had plus. All the time, even in deep crisis around. I think that decentralization in my country was so important. And well, let's say from some points of view, independent activity on the municipality level, district level, and regional level. Of course, we tried to organize it, to harmonize the activity. But they create growth, create jobs in some way independent way. And of course, government. Very important, how we create government, ministers, and so on, so on. There was a lot of remarks about economy, very important. Well, I could probably speak a few hours about that, but it's too much things to say. Let me say, point number 4, as a matter of fact, point number 4 is civil society, key element of democratic system. It must be built, strengthened, and protected. Very important. We should remember that civil society, well, not only NGOs, also properly working parties is a part of civil society. Trade unions is also part of civil society. But the core of civil society, as we know, NGOs, independent organization, active everywhere. Well, I was even personal. I took a personal responsibility for that. I organized Institute for Civil Society. In my institute, independent institute, the only one goal was to organize independent organizations. So my organization, independent, was trying to care about other organizations. Let me say, that it was not easy as a child. My point number 5 is about difficulties. And let me say, each politician should be prepared for the end of his term in office, his or her term in office. It's very important. If you take power as a responsible person in democracy, you must know your term in office will be finished. I experienced such a thing quite a few times. Even in Solidarity, I was, for example, in the 80s, still in communist times, I was president of First National Congress of Solidarity. For 2 weeks, I was the most important person in my country during the communist times. But I knew that in 2 weeks, the Congress will be finished. And I wouldn't be the most important person for next weeks in my country. And I still would like to live in and to share democracy and everything with others. Well, it's very difficult to explain politicians that sometimes they should finish on the basis of democratic rules, because reforms are very, very difficult and politically dangerous. If you want to do true, deep reforms, you must risk your power, that you will lose your power. Maybe there are no many politicians between us today. No state in transition can afford to disregard a large portion of citizens. And it does not mean that justice is not important, so we should also sometimes put to jail some people responsible for the old regime. But all of them which were passive only, we must think about them in quite a different way. Please take care of that if you think really about a good future of your countries. It's my advice. Well, your decision will be taken by yourself. I can only share my point of view with you and know how difficult it is. And another very important problem is the benefits of the transition should be shared. Well, it's extremely difficult. I can tell you that we were not successful in my country. Unfortunately, we still have a few million people who couldn't be involved in the whole process in the excellent way. So they are suffering. Some of them were even fighting against old regime, and now they are in bad situation from material point of view. It's not just justice. It's not just justice that we think about that. So I must tell you, there is not everything. Not in each point we can be successful. And maybe the last point, very short. International cooperation. When I was responsible for my country, doing all these reforms, but also I took care about our neighbors. Our closest neighbors on those times were Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Lithuania. We created something like, we called it Visegrad Group, cooperation between 4 countries. We tried to be closer to each other, negotiating with the EU, doing reforms and giving us examples. What is going better, what is going wrong. And also we had a reconciliation between all of us. Because you know, you are having neighbors countries and also with neighbors you have some tension. It's quite natural. All over the world it's the same. Tension with the neighbors. So we should overcome this problem. It's not easy as well. But it was very successful. Very successful from point of view international cooperation. International investment, foreign investment in our countries started on the basis of reconciliation between all of us and building a new system. strong democratic countries with free market economy and compatibility, strong judicial system, for example, meant that they would like to invest in my country, in our countries. Well, I would like to keep you longer. Thank you very much for the possibility to share my point of view with you. I'm quite sure you will have quite a different point of view on all of these points, so I am very much open for the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for these views and insights. So let's open it up a little bit for a brief discussion with all of you. So I'm pretty sure that you have some questions or comments or views on what you have heard this morning. Anybody who wants to start?
صباح الخير، أتحدث باللغة العربية. اسمي غادة موسى، أنا في واحد الحوكمة بالمعهد القومي للإدارة. الحقيقة أنا بشكر السيد رئيس الوزراء البولندي لأنه يعني وضع النقاط فوق الحروف كما يقولون، بأنه أشار إليها في موضوع المصالحة. وحضرتك تفضلت وقلت إن هو شيء أساسي ويحقق التوافق ويساعد على جذب الاستثمارات. احنا اتعلمنا إن في العدالة الانتقالية لابد أولاً من الاعتراف بالخطأ، ثم المحاكمات العادلة، ثم جبر الضرر، ثم المصالحة. حتى هذه اللحظة وقد أتحدث عن مصر أو عن باقي الدول العربية لم يوجد هناك طرف أو شخص اعترف بالخطأ. يعني أنا لم أسمع أبداً في مصر أو في دولة أخرى إن حد اعتذر لأي حد، أو إن في حاكم اعتذر لنا، أو أن هناك مسؤول اعتذر، أو أقر بأن هو مخطئ، إن هو فعلاً أحضر أموال الدولة، إن هو اختلس الدولة، إن هو يعني أساء في صنع السياسات زي ما الدكتور مصطفى قال، أو إن هو اتخذ سياسات غير رشيدة وبعيدة عن مشاركة المواطنين. فكيف يتم حل هذه المعضلة من خبرات حضرتك؟ شكرا.
Thanks for this.
استفدنا من هذا العرض واشكر المنظمين لان حتى اختيار الاوراق او الموضوعات او الاشخاص كان دقيق. كان هناك عرض اكاديمي من الدكتور مصطفى السيد، وكانت هناك تجربه عمليه من دوله بولندا، وكانت هناك خبره البنك الدولي. لكن ارى ان رغم التشابه الكبير في الكثير من الموضوعات التي نوقشت بين دول الربيع العربي، إلا أنه تبقى هناك خصوصيات لكل دولة. أنا أرى أن هذا الموضوع يحتاج إلى تعمق، لأن كل حالة لها خصوصياتها، وخاصة باعتباري على الأقل لأن رأيت الدكتور مصطفى حاول أن يوازن أو يجد القواسم المشتركة أو الأشياء المختلفة بين دول الربيع العربي، لكن أرى أن هذه الموضوعات تحتاج إلى مزيد من الدراسة، لأن كل دولة تتميز بخصوصيات معينة اجتماعية وسياسية واقتصادية، بالرغم من التشابه الذي قد يظهر على السطح. وشكرا.
أشكر السادة المتحدثين الثلاثة في هذه الجلسة الافتتاحية التي تنبئ بأن هناك تقديم قوي وواعي من الناحية العلمية، وأشكرهم جميعا ولي تعليق على الحديث المثمر للسادة. أولا دكتور جندر هاينهوف ودكتور مصطفى كامل والسيد المحترم معالي رئيس وزراء الاتحاد الاسبق جيرسي بوزيك. ما قاله الدكتور جندر هاينهوف يعني يستحق يعني الاحترام والتقدير، نقدر نقول كده بالالماني يعني